Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, January 28th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the two big names in the NBA trade market as the trade deadline approaches just about a week away. We talked about Jimmy Butler. We talked about De'Aaron Fox based on the report that came out today from Shams Charania. In this segment, we turn our attention to the MLB. Baseball, their free agency continues to go. We had one major signing, Jurickson Profar, being signed by the Braves. We'll talk about that, as well as some teams and players that have yet to find homes. We'll figure out where they might end up and why it's taking so long for some of these names to find a spot. We'll talk about that in just a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, January 28th. But like I was saying, we're going to go over a couple of the big news coming out of the MLB. Free agency updates and free agents that are still yet to be signed. We're going to start off with one of the big signings that has occurred recently, that being Jurickson Profar, the star or the surprise star coming out of the San Diego Padres. He had a huge season last year. He takes his talents over to the Atlanta Braves to join an outfield that is already pretty stacked. They're going to be getting an MVP candidate in Ronald Acuna Jr. back. They've got Marcell Ozuna, a power hitter who can play DH and a little bit of outfield, and Michael Harris II, who is one of the best defensive outfielders in the game, won a Gold Glove his rookie season and continues to get better at the plate. You add Jurickson Profar to that team that got absolutely decimated by injuries, still was able to almost make a run to the playoffs last year, and they had a Cy Young candidate. They had a Cy Young winner. This is a team that's stacked on paper, off paper, and they're there to make another run. I think adding Jurickson Profar is really going to help. They took a swing on Jarred Kelenic last year to help replace and have some depth in the outfield behind Ronald Acuna Jr. after he went down with his injury. Kelenic didn't really work out. They're going to continue to try and find their replacements. They're going to continue to try and build that outfield. But what the Braves have done, even despite losing a couple of key arms in this offseason, they've really done a great job of shoring up what was a little bit of a depleted lineup, was a little bit of a depleted team from what looked like a comparable squad on paper to the Los Angeles Dodgers at the beginning of last season. I thought the Braves and the Dodgers were pretty much on paper the two best teams. Instead, the Braves dealt with their fair share of injuries, and the Dodgers went on to win the World Series. But we move on to this season. Jurickson Profar, after coming off of his best season, his first all-star nod in his career after being drafted in the top 10, he finds a way to get a little bit of money in a contract year. He heads over to Atlanta, and he should be a huge addition for them if he can keep up what he did last season. A couple guys that have not been signed, though. Maybe the biggest name that's still left on the pitching side of things is Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty, former Cardinal, moved on to the Tigers and was traded to the Dodgers at the trade deadline last season. There's been a lot of rumors for Jack Flaherty coming off of winning his first ring. He is a guy that is really good. He was a huge piece of their win of the World Series run, pitching a couple of key games to get them past the Mets in the championship series and a key game in the World Series when they took on the Yankees. Jack Flaherty was a huge get for them at the deadline, but they already have so many arms. We went over it after they brought in Roki Sasaki. They've got 6 guys, potentially more, that could continue to go and pitch for this team, right? You've got Clayton Kershaw, who's going to come back, reportedly. You've got Roki Sasaki. You've got Tyler Glasnow. You've got Shohei Ohtani coming to the mound. They signed Blake Snell. This is a team that's going to continue to have arms. They've got 6 guys. They could bring back Jack Flaherty and continue to build a rotation that will go deeper and deeper, potentially go to a true 6-man rotation in the MLB, which is something we have not really seen in professional top tier baseball, at least over the consistency of a full season. The Dodgers are a team that have the money and have shown the initiative to go and do that. And Jack Flaherty would be a great fifth, sixth man for them in that rotation. You've also got Yoshi Yamamoto and everyone else that's still continuing to build up. Maybe they even go 7. But because they have so many pitchers, I just don't really see a world where he goes back to the Dodgers, although that certainly is a possibility. A couple of other options. There's a couple of pitcher-needy teams that are really looking for him. The Tigers, a reunion over there, I think would make a lot of sense. He had a lot of success over there with AJ Hinch and the Tigers, and I think that's one that would be a really good spot for him to land. But another team that's looking for some pitching, the Orioles are always going to be in on this. I would love it if the Orioles spent some money to go out and get a pitcher. The Nationals, also in the DMV over here, could use a pitcher. Now the question is, does he want to go to a contender team? Does he want to go to a team that's going to win? He's just coming off of winning a championship. I don't know what his expectations for being on a winning team is. If he just wants to go take the most amount of money, I think he could even consider a team like the Marlins if they're willing to pay any amount of money. But really, I think the two best fits for him are the Tigers, a reunion over there, as aside from Scooball, we saw in the playoffs, they had just about no one. They were being very creative with their arms. Or the Orioles, because they need some arms badly. They haven't been super active in that department this offseason. They haven't really gotten out those guys that they needed to. They don't have a replacement for Corbin Burns, who leaves in the offseason, who was really their best arm and was one of the reasons why they were even considered in some of these playoff games. But still, the Orioles, I just don't see them doling out the money. So I think at the end of the day, he's going to end up back with the Tigers, but I think the Orioles would be a great landing spot for Jack Flaherty as pitchers and catchers report soon, and he's really the last big name left out there. Aside from that, there's a couple of hitters. We've talked a lot about Alex Bregman. He continues to wait until the last possible second. Alex Bregman is a guy that turned down a lot of money with the Houston Astros. The Astros went out and they got a replacement for him. They're not going to go out and get him. The Houston Astros went out and already found a new home. So Alex Bregman is going to go onto a new team. And a lot of reports are for the Boston Red Sox. The Blue Jays, they're always going to be in on it. They went and they got a power hitter, although he's an outfielder and a DH in Santander. Maybe they can add a true third baseman over there. But the Red Sox, they're a team that already has a third baseman. They've talked about shifting Rafael Devers over to second base and putting Alex Bregman over there at third. That's a possibility for them. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do this. I'm not sure what their plan is. But at the end of the day, I think the Red Sox have the high ground here for Alex Bregman. There aren't really a lot of other teams that I think are super close. A lower tier team, potentially the Washington Nationals. I know we talked about them with Jack Flaherty. They have a committee at third base, and it's just because he's a third baseman. I don't really think he's got a shot, or the Nationals are super interested in him, but that would be a team, a dark horse team to be considered in the Alex Bregman sweepstakes. The other couple hitters that I wanted to focus on, Pete Alonso. He obviously is Mr. Met. He is the New York Mets guy, but he is a free agent, and this has been a really interesting negotiation for the New York Mets and for Pete Alonso specifically. They've gone to the New York Mets and they've been like, "Hey, this isn't enough money." But they've also gone to the Mets and said, "Hey, this is a deal that's only for you." Pete Alonso wants to go to the Mets. They're playing a little bit of hardball. Jared Cohen, their owner, who spends the second most amount of money in baseball. He just spent $700 million to go get Juan Soto, just outbidding everybody to win that war for Juan Soto. They're saying this has been the most frustrating negotiation that they've ever gone through. And Pete Alonso is a guy that I feel really wants to go back to the Mets, and at the end of the day is going to, but I think they've kind of shot themselves in the foot with the way that they're doing these negotiations. I think they've really hurt themselves with how they're deciding to go about these things and how they're deciding, hey, this is what we want. We want term, we want money, and I think they're just trying to nickel and dime a little bit too much. I don't think they're going to get the kind of contract that Pete Alonso wants, but at the end of the day, I do think he ends up coming back to New York to join that trio of him, Juan Soto, and Francisco Lindor and continue to build on what was a really good run last season as they get more power to that team. So we'll see what happens, but I think he ends up with the Mets again. And the final one that I wanted to focus on is Ha-Seong Kim. Ha-Seong Kim, the shortstop for the Padres last season, is still a free agent. He can play just about anywhere on the infield, but I was thinking about this. Where is he going to go? Because this is a really talented infield for the Padres. They have shortstops literally everywhere, and I don't know, especially at this rate, if he is coming back. One team that came to mind was the Dodgers for me, right? You look at it, and they've had Mookie Betts playing shortstop, and Mookie Betts is a good shortstop, sure. He's one of the best shortstop in the game purely because of his offensive talents, but he's also solid as a defender. But he won Gold Gloves over there in the outfield, and I think the Dodgers lost a little bit of talent defensively in the outfield. Putting him back out there, I think, would be huge for them. If they can get a really good shortstop, a really good defensive shortstop that can hit the ball a little bit. I know they just traded away Gavin Lux as they got a guy that can play second base and is a little bit of a journeyman, a utility guy, but I think adding a true shortstop, a Gold Glove caliber guy in Ha-Seong Kim would be huge for them. And I really think that's the move. I don't know how much money they're going to be willing to dish out, but when I'm looking at teams that he could potentially go to, where he might potentially end up, the Dodgers are the team that I keep coming back to for Ha-Seong Kim. But again, long time to go in the MLB offseason. Pitchers and catchers report in just about 2 or 3 weeks. Cannot wait for that. The baseball season is almost back. The best time of the year is right around the corner. Have all 4 sports going on at the same time, technically. I can't wait for that. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention over to college basketball. We have neglected this sport, to be completely honest with you, as a lot of other stuff has been going on around the world of sports, but it's about time we do a little tour around the world of college basketball. March Madness, about 40 days away at this point, maybe around 45. We're going to talk about what the landscape looks like in the top 25 and who we should look at as we start to prepare for our brackets and March Madness right around the corner. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.